So I have my two pictures combined. All you need to have for your book cover is two pictures that are combined together. More is obviously okay. Now it's time to add my title. So I'm going to use the text tool, the horizontal type tool for this. It's the one with the letter T. And I'm just going to click somewhere in the picture, and that should bring up a cursor. So my book's going to be called Flintlock, because that's my favorite snowboard run in Steamboat Springs, but you can see it's incredibly small. So I can use the Move tool if I want to resize it, or I can click and select my text, and we'll try bringing it up to 72 point. So that's a little bit bigger. I'm going to use the Move tool over here to center it a little more for the moment. And I want to change it to white because the gray, as you can see, is not showing up against the background. So to change the color, I'm going to select all my text, and then the text color box is up here at the top, and then I just changed it to white. I don't particularly like that font. Looks like something you'd see in an old textbook from the 1950s, which is not very exciting. So what you can do is, if you have the font selected or the text selected, you can go up into the font list here, and I'm just going to go all the way to the top and select the first one. And as long as this is highlighted and the name of the font up here is highlighted, you can use the mouse wheel and scroll down through the fonts. So I'm going to look until I find one that I like. I think this is the one I used on my example. So once I have the font I want, I can use the Move tool again to change the size, change the position. I'm going to put it right there. And then if I really want to make sure that it's centered in my image, if I select the Move tool and I have the layer that I want selected, I can press Control-T, and that's going to bring up X and Y coordinates up here. Now, I know that my image, I believe, is 750 pixels wide, which would make 375 pixels exactly halfway. So I'm going to change this value, my X value, to 375, and that's going to put it dead center in my picture. Once I have it where I want it, I click the rectangular marquee again, and I hit apply. So that's all I would need to do for my title. But I also need an author. So I'm going to select the text tool again, and I'll click down at the bottom. Now, as you can see, this is quite a bit larger than the rest of my book cover. So again, I can use the Move tool to resize it. If I don't want my font to get messed up, I need to hold down the Shift key as I resize. And then I can click and drag to move it to the position I want. Now I'm going to want this probably to be centered as well. So with the author layer selected, I'm going to select the Move tool and press Control-T. And again, change this value to 375 to center it in the middle of my picture. Now, if I still find that it doesn't show up as well as I want it to, you have some other options. If you double click on a layer in the layers window, or if you just right click, you can select blending options. And that's going to bring up a whole bunch of different tools I can use to adjust the text. A drop shadow will leave a shadow. You can change the angle of the shadow here. I'm going to keep it at the same sort of angle that the shadows in the snow are. You can change the distance of the shadow from the letters. You can change how far the shadow spreads out. how large it is. I usually keep the spread and the size fairly close to the default value. An inner shadow, we'll add a shadow to the inside of the letters to make them look like they're kind of cut in. Outer glow, we'll add a color to the outside of your letters. You can make it look like they're glowing using if you use the right color and the right blend mode. So instead of me going through all of these, feel free to mess around with them and see if there's one that you like. Stroke is one you might want to use that adds an outline to the outside of your letters, and you can change the size of it to the point where it's ridiculous. I'm going to skip this for now, but feel free to try that out for yourself too if you find that your letters aren't standing out very well. It's a good way to make them stand out, especially on the back cover where you're probably going to have a lot more typing. So that's the basics of how to put a book cover together for this project. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in class, but really what we covered was how to cut and paste photos, how to make adjustments to the photos to make them fit better, and then how to add text and add effects to the text. If you want to get any deeper into any of this stuff, feel free to mess around with it and find what you like and find what's going to make your book cover successful. So now that we're done creating the book cover, here's just a couple examples. These were in the original PowerPoint that we went over in class, but just a review. Remember, you're making a front and back cover, and the front and back cover need to have at least one cut and pasted image and also text of some kind. So that's going to work for both sides. Even in this case, the UPC and this sort of lattice design were cut and pasted, even though the background is just a simple gradient from white to red. Here the cars and the girl were cut and pasted. Text was added on top. For the back cover, she actually created the snow texture and cut and pasted a UPC and has her text. For this one, text was added. Each of the circles, each of the symbols was cut and pasted, as was the planet in the background. And then on the back cover here, the UPC and the planet were also cut and pasted into the image. So make sure that your end cover has those basic requirements of image and text and background on both sides. All right, so before we go, I'm just going to go over the A+ section of the rubric. The first thing I'm going to look at, your front cover needs to have at least the 3 following elements. And that would be a background image, at least one cut and pasted image, and then text detailing the title and author of the book. What you add besides that is totally up to you. But again, if we just look at my front cover, we have our title, author, and then we even have a quote from a reviewer. Back cover has the following 3 elements. Remember, you're doing a front and back cover. You need to have a background image, at least one cut and pasted image, and then lastly, a plot synopsis paragraph. And you can use your initial paragraph that you wrote as the author you can pretty much cut and paste from that paragraph, and you can do it using the text tool. Just go into Word, copy the text, and then you can actually go right into Photoshop and paste into a paragraph. So again, going back to this example, we have our synopsis paragraph, a couple other quotes from reviewers. We got our background image, and I cut and pasted in a different sky on top of the mountains, and also cut and pasted the snow texture, the falling snow, and the UPC code here on the back. So again, background image, text, and at least one cut and pasted image. And that's going to be for both sides of the book. Third thing I'm going to look at, your cut and pasted images fit with your backgrounds because you use the brightness contrast sliders and the hue and saturation sliders to adjust them to help things fit. Number 4, overall craftsmanship. Your cut and pasted images were well outlined when you used the pen tool before copying and pasting them. No jagged edges, no pointy pieces, no random areas of background from the original picture still showing, and text stands out well from the background. And so using blending options is a good way to make sure that your text is going to pop. The color of the text will also help with that. Number 5, your final images were at least 667 pixels wide by 1,000 pixels tall. This goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning. Should be 1,000 pixels in height at least. And the images you chose to cut and paste were high enough resolution that they're not blurry. So make sure you're choosing images that are the right size, that you're not resizing things and having blurry pictures. And then lastly, you gave your best effort and used your class time well for this assignment. So that's the rubric. If you have any questions, just make sure and ask me, and I will see you guys in class.